Deputy Commander of U.S. Central Command, Admiral Harward grew up in Iran, so he has a very interesting perspective on all of this, his long years in the military and also his personal experience in the region. And retired Navy Vice Admiral Mark Fox, former commander of U.S. Navy CENTCOM. He was Communications Division Chief for the multinational force in Iraq, a U.S.-led coalition that oversaw the operations during the Iraq War. Both are with the Iran Policy Project at the Jewish Institute for National Security in America. And gentlemen, it is very good to have both of you with us. Let me start, if I may, Admiral Harward, with you. And I want to play this other piece of sound from the president talking about what he plans to do now. We know that Kharg Island was hit over the weekend, but clearly these operations are very much and energetically ongoing. Here he is at number 3.
We're hitting them very hard, and today is a big day. We're pounding a certain area that has very much to do with the Strait, and I think we'll get it going very soon. In addition, we do have other nations coming in. You need people to watch and people to see. We have other nations coming in.
Admiral Harward, we have a satellite image, maybe we can put it up, that just shows the traffic through the area. There's a lot sort of bunched on either side of that narrow area of the strait. So clearly there's a lot of restriction as to what can get through. And you heard the president's plan there. What's your reaction to all that?
Well, I think it reinforces how important the Straits of Hormuz and the flow of commerce is to everyone, and why coalitions are partners, being part of the solution is so important as well. So tying those both together and reinforcing that with everyone understates how important it is to get it done. And so adding that additional capacity and capabilities that our partners bring to the table is critical. And I can't think of a better person. Good to be here with you and my shipmate, Fox. He understands specifically because he was solely responsible for that in one of his previous jobs.
Well, that's a great introduction. Vice Admiral Mark Fox, thank you for being here as well. From your own experience, sir, what do you see as sort of the issue here that maybe people who haven't spent time in the Strait as you have don't understand about what's really going on here?
Well, the geography is fixed. The Strait of Hormuz is about maybe 20 miles or so wide at its narrowest point. The Gulf itself is long. The Iranian coastline is very long. But I think the most important thing, certainly from a military point of view, we need to have what we would refer to as an ISR. That's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, a soak of staring at all of the different points there in the Strait of Hormuz. It's so much easier to find mines if you've seen them being put over the side. And so I haven't heard any specific reports that there are mines in the water, but I would expect fully that there is a concerted effort to have a really strong surveillance and reconnaissance posture so we can see what's going on there. And, you know, we've eliminated so many of their military capabilities, but small boats with single mines are a hard problem, and we need to be staring at it.
Yeah, we know that there have been about 10 to 17 vessels that have been hit in the Strait since February 28th, a number of different countries and flags, none of them U.S. flagged at this point. It seems like, Admiral Harward, what's happening on the Iran side is that they're playing this game, basically saying, you know, President Trump saying we need our allies to get on board and the people who need this strait open, even more than we do, to get on board. And Iran is saying, you know, well, we'll make some deals. We'll pick and choose which countries because we control the whole thing. Here is the foreign minister of Iran yesterday. Watch this.
We have been approached by a number of countries who wants to have a safe passage for their vessels, and this is up to our military to decide. And they have already decided to let a group of vessels belongs to different countries to pass in a safe and secure. So we provide them security to pass because we have not closed this strait.
So, you know, he talks like he has complete control over this whole zone and that the countries on the other side of the water don't have anything to say about it. What's the reality there, Admiral Harward, and how do we get control of this area with the other people who use it every day?
Well, the issue and the truth is they can control it, and they have. They've been able to do that for decades. And if we're not dealing with the regime, the end state, this problem will always exist. So why should one country be able to control the free flow of commerce in and out of the region? So it reinforces this regime, their intent, not just now, but long term. So at the end of the day, we have to solve this immediate problem, but more importantly, the longer term problem to ensure that commerce is free, not just today, but for the long haul. And as Mark so astutely recognized, our ability to see wide areas of not just the straits, but the land mass where they can launch the cruise missiles and the drones from, especially these Shaheeds, they're moving around on trucks. That ability to have that wide area of surveillance, to see all this time, real time, persistently, is part of the solution to take care of not just the mining issue, but the drone issue, and that will allow commerce to flow.
That's a great point. Very quickly, Admiral Fox, if you can, what's been established is that we've had so much success in this entire endeavor so far, but as you're both just pointing out, Iran is still controlling this strait. What do you think is the number one thing that we could do to change that dynamic? Does it have to be a regime change, Admiral Fox?
No, I think that, that's a political issue. This is a military problem that we're trying to solve, and that is to kill or disable all of the launchers or the means that the Iranians are capable of using, either to put mines in the water or to shoot coastal defense cruise missiles. The Iranians have shown their true stripes. They have attacked Oman, for Pete's sake. That's the Switzerland of the Middle East. They've hit all of their neighbors. So they're the pariah nation here, and I think it's time for the world coalition to kind of gather together and say, we won't stand for this.
Last thought from you, Admiral Harward, as we take a look at this, and you're giving us a really good picture of what has to happen militarily. We know the president said in the first soundbite I played, we're hitting them very hard, and today is going to be a big day, pounding a certain area. Admiral Harward.
Yep, it's relentless. It's been that way every day, and it's uncertain when that tipping point will come, but he's shown a commitment. He said this yesterday, we're going to see this through. So the tipping point is coming. It's keeping the group together and committed to that end state to achieve it. And I think this administration's driven by that, and I think the other coalition members should be reassured by that.
So in terms of equipment, Admiral Fox, you hear this back and forth, and I feel like you're going to say, rightly so, what you said to my last question, which is, the difference between a political question and a military one. But the political side shows that some of our strongest allies are very reluctant. South Korea, I think, was one of the places that the president was referring to there, to say, yes, we will come help. Do we need that militarily to have those other ships and missiles taking out these sites that you're talking about in the region?
Well, it's always good when you fight alongside your allies and your partners. That's always a good way to go. At the same time, we bring the preponderance of force and surveillance and reconnaissance to this. The Israelis are doing a magnificent job. They've got incredible intelligence. And so it's a team effort. Nobody does it all by themselves. And so the more people we have on our team, the better off it'll be.
Admiral Harward, there's some analysts looking at this and saying that Iran is trying to suck us in to this situation, to make it very difficult for us so that we have to continue to bring more and more resources to bear in the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very tight area, and that potentially could put our people in a lot of danger. What do you say to that?
We're in it now. The question is, how much more resources will we pump in the timeline? So I think we're into this solid, and like I just said, the commitment to see this through is going to be the bedrock that will sustain this. So, and again, we're still in a limited war from our perspective. From the Iranians, this is unlimited. This is their existential thing. They're throwing everything in the book. You see us gradually escalate. We're moving Muse into the theaters and other stuff. We can continue that path till we meet the end state we need. And I'm certain from what I'm hearing, and the president has said, he's committed to do that. So it's just a matter of time. What assets we bring. The Muse is a perfect example. That gives you additional options should you intend to take islands or other bowways, other locations you may want to plant the flag to reinforce our commitment to see this through, and other measures that would help contribute to that free flow of oil through the straits.
Yeah. All right. Well, we know there's a lot of back and forth over whether U.S. ships alone should be protecting this area. And I hear both of you saying that there are targets that can be taken out inland to help hamper the ability of Iran to fire at these ships going through, as we've been doing and has been happening. Thank you so much, both of you gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.